Welcome to the Consultancy Edge, Ben Edwards. How are you today, sir?
Very well. Looking forward to talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Always. I've been really looking forward to this as well. And I don't know why we haven't done it before, but there you go. Look, Ben, I want to kick off with a kind of State of the Union address, if you like. You speak with consultancy leaders, professional service firms, as well on an almost daily basis, I'm sure. What is the vibe out there? Are you seeing people being cautiously optimistic about what's coming? Are they quietly stressed? Are they heads down building for the next phase of growth? What's the message out there that you're seeing?
I think for a couple of years there has been cautious optimism, but I'd say in the last couple of quarters, actually there's been, and this is broad, right, across all types of different consulting, um, a little bit more skepticism, just maybe what's going on geopolitically in terms of maybe some of the challenges and the headwinds that we've actually experienced, and maybe just a slight dampening of some of that optimism just because of how long the market has felt like it's been relatively flat.
Yeah.
And that's for like broad strategy type consultancies. But there are pockets, different geolocations and different specific industries that are still doing really, really well. But that would be my sense from like the excitement from a couple of years ago coming out of the back of COVID to where we are now.
Yeah, I'm seeing very much the same. I think the statistics are showing that actually the market is growing, but that's not being reflected in consultancy growth right now. But there are some outliers. There are some, as we've been discussing, that are crushing it, but many are feeling the strain right now, right?
Right. And I think, relevant to what you do, now is the time to be looking at everything in your organization and your proposition because the opportunities, if you want a level of optimism, are coming from the ability to beat some of those bigger firms who just are seen as generalists. No doubt the boutiques that we mainly work with have got increased specialism, and it's about really showing that, delivering the
Yeah.
value to the clients, and that's where you're going to be able to sort of beat that flatness.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet you wear a few hats in the consulting space. Of course, we know you from CMap, but also the Consulting Pulse podcast as well, which people really need to check out. In addition to this one, of course. Explain to people, if you would, about CMap. You know, if you met with a consultancy founder in an elevator, giving them the pitch, what is it that you help them to do better?
So we're an operations intelligence platform. So we sit in the heart of a consulting firm. And the pain that we address for ops, finance, and partners or execs in that is you've probably built your business on a myriad of point solutions and spreadsheets. And that means that you've got complete disconnection between business development and sales, delivery, and then getting the invoices out the door. So we are that middle piece. We like to say we fill the operations black hole by connecting sales and business development on the front end, finance on the back end with everything you do delivery wise in the middle. So spreadsheets are very common in consulting firms who move from that then onto CMap, as well as like timesheet solutions, project management solutions, pricing proposals. We try and combine all of that in one nice central place so you can get better forward visibility and improve things like your margin, your utilization, and continue on that nice growth trajectory that you're hopefully on.
And I guess that visibility is the big thing that a lot of consultancy leaders actually there's information they don't have their finger on the pulse of. They're not quite sure, and actually that's missed opportunities, isn't it? In terms of that, you're giving them that data visualization, you're bringing it front and center to them so they can make better informed decisions.
Yeah, what's kind of ironic is lots of consultancies are in the data space, but like Cobbler's Children's, maybe haven't got that same sort of like inward perspective on what data they have got and how they can harness that themselves. But in a people-based business where you don't have a huge ton of data points, like I say, a manufacturing business or an FMCG business, travel and hospitality. There's lots of data points that those businesses have. In people-based businesses, it often can come down to time. So it's like, how much value are you getting from that time? There's some interesting businesses who don't choose to track that, and therefore, like, will use other types of data to sort of inform their decisions. But in a professional services firm, you really want to get an understanding of like what's in your pipeline, what are your people up to, where's the value that you're delivering? How much are you being able to charge for that? And yeah, the data that comes with that. There's hundreds of data points that can really help inform that decision making process going forwards.
Right. I know that there's a vast array of challenges I'm sure that you're helping to solve for. What are some of the most common challenges, frustrations, friction points that you're seeing with consultancy leaders before they come to you?
Yeah, so for a leader, and again, if you look at some of the data that's available in the market, past couple of years, the amount of time that a leader of a boutique consultancy is spending back in the business is increasing. The amount of delivery work that they are having to do is increasing. The amount of time that they're spending on their business strategy is decreasing, yet they actually want to spend more time doing that. So they're in this predicament where they're trying to grow a business, but it's increasingly dependent on them. And that founder dependency has been a problem for boutiques as long as time, but it's actually exacerbating. So for a founder, it's solving that challenge. It's enabling them to step a little bit away from the business, look more forwards into the future, and embed some good processes and programs and operations to give them the visibility they need to drive it forwards. But their team go out and pitch work, win work, deliver work, get the invoices out the door. But then below the founder, there'll be individual pains for ops leaders, finance leaders, delivery leaders that we also address. But given I know both of us are working a lot with partners and the execs, for them, that would be the main bit.
And what is it, do you think, that's driving those leaders back into that delivery mode? Because as you rightly said, and I speak to consultancy leaders on a daily basis, they all want to spend more time on strategy. They want to be the visionary in their business typically. What is dragging them back into delivery? Is it cost pressure? Is it something else?
Oh, what a great question. God, you got
Known
right to the
for
heart of it at that one.
it.
Um, do you know, there's probably market fundamentals that are impacting it for sure. And therefore, that makes them feel like they need to be way more involved because maybe margins are tighter, maybe pipelines dried up a bit, and they just can't help themselves but want to get back in because, yeah, the market has dictated that. Um, it might also be that they haven't really got the support structure around them, and that could be technology, it could be people, it could be
Yeah.
processes, it could be mentors, it could be all of these different things where they just haven't got to the point where they feel comfortable enough to be able to do that. But what I will tell you is because we don't just work with the partners, we also work with like that next level beneath them.
Mm.
The amount of firms where those people are screaming out for more responsibility and more trust and more tools and capabilities to help the visionary grow the business, that has never been higher. So maybe having said all that, it just comes down to feeling like you can trust the business to be able to do that. And then it's solving that piece that will enable you to step back out again.
Yeah, one of the things perhaps we haven't considered is that a lot of these leaders, really enjoy being part of the delivery process. They want to keep the saw sharp and maybe spend a bit of time there as well as being the visionary at the same time. But enough about the challenges, because I know it's very easy to drag everyone down at the moment. Where are boutiques winning right now, Ben? Are they improving their sharper scoping? Are they productizing? I'm seeing a lot of that going on. Is there better pipeline discipline? Maybe that's driven by economic circumstances. Where are the wins coming from?
From a market perspective, there's definitely wins in some segments, and there's some consolidation through M&A activity. So you look at ECG and environment, look at some bits of sustainability, construction components, and engineering. If you look at maybe data and AI consultancy, the obvious ones. So if you're in it, also those businesses that are aligned with like hot SaaS platforms, if you're the professional services firm that is aligned with one of the big growth businesses, maybe out of Silicon Valley, they're largely North American SaaS businesses, um, then you're still doing well because those SaaS businesses don't want big professional services teams. They're happy to have a partner ecosystem of pro serve firms. So they're doing well. Um, Beyond sort of like the market and the hot spots that consultancies can focus on. Definitely the game you're in, so value proposition, those with really tight value props, and then beyond that, marketing strategies
Yeah.
um, are doing well and who've moved beyond partner-led sales or 100% referral based networks and have enabled them to sort of like grow beyond that black book, or another cohort that you would look at that are performing well. Tech enabled businesses, so consultancies that have started to be more data driven, adopt technologies. And we haven't gone into AI yet, but just base level technologies to help with delivery, are seeing better margins. And obviously, if you've got better margins, then you're going to have more money to invest in things like marketing, business development,
Yeah.
increasing the capability of the delivery team. So that would be another cohort that I would say are still doing well.
Yeah, I think there is that trend of productization, and seeing a growing number of consultancies where they're not perhaps in bed with a vendor and reselling and adding value to a particular technology product. As you say, they're developing their own quite often, to really align with their own value proposition, and that seems to be a really popular way to push forward at the moment. You've got your finger on the pulse of the data there, Ben. I mean, obviously you're affording your clients that ability, but I'm guessing behind the scenes you extol those virtues yourself as well. What are you seeing that's perhaps quietly killing margin right now? What are you seeing consultancies perhaps slipping into old habits? What would you advocate that they perhaps get rid of this quarter if they really want to end the year well?
The obvious one that jumps out is like a scope creep perspective. So there's so many firms who are pre our solution or even have started using our solution and haven't really built out really comprehensive SOWs and proposals. And therefore, whether you're doing T&M work, you're doing fixed bid, or you're doing value-based pricing, if your client controls actually what is getting delivered, then your resource gets eaten up really quickly. And that is still the bit that lots of firms could hopefully improve upon, which would help improve their margin. So, zero value purchase orders could be instilled for any change requests. Hotter scoping on the front end would obviously improve that.
Yeah.
Confident conversations around like this is an upsell or extension opportunity. I can understand why some businesses maybe you don't choose that option right now particularly if they're competing against some bigger firms who are happy to sort of like throw resource because they've got big benches at a project. You might think, oh, well, we'll just keep delivering this piece for the client to keep them happy. I do understand those are the pressures and they're very real right now.
Yeah, and the expectation also seems to be from buyers that the speed to impact element is more prevalent than ever, that consultancies are having to show that they are making a difference with the work that they're doing, especially in the very early stages of engagement. So how are you seeing the data really inform that? And how can consultancies be a little bit better, perhaps, at first off capturing the sort of benchmark or baseline state within a client organization, and then show the results of their work?
There's quite a lot of evidence that a number of professional service firms haven't necessarily gone back through their historicals first and foremost. So rather than trying to create a new set of benchmarks and where the value is right from the off, investigate what you've already done and understand the value of the projects that have been delivered to previous clients, because that will give you a better informed perspective of how much time it took you, but also what value it drove, what the outcome was for the client. Because then the next time you're doing a piece of work, that will inform, obviously, again, like a resourcing perspective, what goes into the proposal, what value a client can potentially expect to get delivered. That also would feed really nicely into that productization point you meant, because then you can start looking at, well, what are the engagements that we're constantly doing or slight tweaks on it that are delivering the most value? And then we give it a name. We come up with like a way to package it. We give our prospects a couple of different options, and you read the textbooks about pricing and anchoring, and you're then starting to figure out, okay, what's the entry point? What's the sort of like all access, all you can eat solution? And then it makes your proposal that you really want to sell the one that seems like the highest value, and then obviously you'll drive a significant percentage of wins on those um, offerings. So historicals, what you're currently doing, and then obviously working with really good marketing people to make sure that your four Ps are completely aligned, so that you can go to market with it and deliver some really great work and keep winning some projects going forwards.
Yeah, I love that. Social proof is so important. Yeah, I see so many consultancies still failing to go back and check in with previous clients, further down the line. Because sometimes that impact isn't immediately realized, and you have to just keep asking. And I get it, in a lot of circumstances, you're not going to be able to talk about it. Clients will be reluctant for their name to get out there. But even anonymized wins can really make a difference, can't they?
Right, yeah, I've been learning a lot about that, probably from our mutual connection at Lead Comet,
Yeah.
and yeah, the power of that is actually something that we're now bringing to our own marketing at CMap, and we would recommend other businesses do the same, because for so long you think that you need a brand and a person's name, but actually when you showcase to other prospects really nuanced work and specific solutions that you have delivered, that in itself is highly credible. And I think a lot of buyers of big professional services engagements, five, six, seven-figure type engagements, understand that there has to be a level of anonymity because they would want that for themselves as well. But having like demonstrating that depth of experience and the little niche and nuancy terms that are only relevant to a really small ICP, will help you into it. It's again, it's what you do. It's like removing the blandness on your content and the work that you delivered, and trying to and using like business generalizations. Actually, the more specific and human you can make it, the more you'll stand out.
Absolutely right. Um, Ben, I know that when consultancies are using products like CMAP, they're getting access to all of these key insights. And the clue's in the name with this podcast, the consultancy edge. We're trying to find that edge for that leader that's really looking to make the step change. Is there a process that you advocate that your clients and any consultancy leader follow when it comes to assessing the data, acting upon it in a way that almost guarantees they're going to be making positive step changes in their business?
Yeah, one of the biggest step changes is the way that you price out your work, whether you're doing T&M billing, fixed fee billing, value-based pricing, not just having a salesperson command what the proposal price is going to be, and take the budget from a client, and then that becomes your statement of work. Actually, truly understanding what it's going to cost to deliver a piece of work for a client and getting really granular on that can make a huge impact in terms of the delivery team's well-being, and not finding you've got a team of like massively stretched and overutilized people that are constantly drained. You'll improve your margins significantly, both gross, and also from the EBITDA perspective, demonstrably improve that. And even those slight tweaks and improvements and things like billable utilization that come from obsessing over that initial piece of work will deliver outsized improvements. So we're always working with people in professional services firms who feel overworked, stretched, pulling data from lots of different sources. If you can get on top of that one initial piece and better scope your projects, everything else flows off the back of that. And obviously, if you're improving things like margin, then all those requests that those team members are making about better away days, I want to do more learning and development, I want to work on some interesting non-billable activities. Like, you've actually got the budget to be able to do that.
Mm.
Like, that's the thing that I've seen over the past couple of years. Look, the margins have just become gradually compressed and compressed and compressed. It just gives professional services firms a little bit less to work with. So most firms trying to sell their way out of trouble right now, like, oh, we need pipeline, we need new opportunities. And actually, if you just look inwards a little bit first, there's some little tweaks and adjustments. Gives you the breathing room, gives you the cash flow, gives you the margin to be able
Yeah.
to play with it a little bit more.
And in that situation, then, Ben, and you mentioned a couple of the different sort of metrics and KPIs, perhaps that leaders should be taking a look at. But if you had to really keep your eye on 3 to 5, perhaps metrics that you think are going to make the greatest difference in consultancy right now, what would you be looking at?
Gross profit on every single project that you're running, gross profit on every client or account, billable utilization, forward-looking pipeline, and forward-looking order book. I think if you've got those 5 things, like that gives you a really good financial operational perspective on the business. And you can then see whether you're currently in good health, whether going forwards you look like you're going to be in good health, whether the work that you're doing is giving you enough cash to be able to reinvest against some of the benchmarks. That would be a really good starting point. This is very ops and finance KPI perspective. I know I'm on a marketing based podcast, so but I did throw pipeline in there. So there is a really strong marketing KPI in there.
Yeah, no, I think this is the thing that I think a lot of people would recognize is that sometimes marketing isn't about that net new. I think that's where everybody's awareness is. It's like where's the next complete stranger going to come from that we can welcome into our pipeline, rather than looking in your own backyard, trawling, your existing list, your pipeline. There's some of those dormant opportunities, perhaps that you might be able to respark. As well as, of course, your existing customers. We know from the bench press report every year that the referral strategies aren't really being implemented to the greatest degree. So, I mean, with that in mind, Ben, what are some of the things, the fundamentals, I guess, that you see consultancies should be doing that they're really not?
From like a market perspective and a sales
Yeah,
perspective first, rather than yeah, okay. Well, when I think about majority of the consultancies we work with, their TAM, their total addressable market, it tends not to be tens of thousands of prospects by firm. Sometimes not even thousands. Often it's actually hundreds. And therefore, like, you don't need to be winning a huge percentage of your addressable market to have a really good business.
yeah,
So actually, let's go a step back. I think a lot of firms will make the mistake in thinking they can sell everything to anyone, in which case your TAM is the world. Now, if you've gone through an exercise where like you understand your ICP and you've got a tight value prop, then you understand that your TAM is going to be smaller. What's great then is that means your universe of buyers actually becomes smaller. And I always think that's a great thing. I think we're a SaaS business, but I'm always looking at ways to reduce our TAM. This sounds crazy as I'm saying it, but stick with me. Because the reason is then you can really niche in on like some of the language, like where you win. You can, from a qualification perspective, dismiss things that aren't going to be a good fit earlier, which then reduces the amount of time you spend on proposals and projects that are never going to be won or never going to be valuable or going to churn at some point. So like reducing your time is actually a really good thing. And then it's like trying to, obviously, we're in the age of awareness. It's like trying to increase your awareness with that universe of buyers. But if you brought that universe of buyers down, you can do that in a quite a cost-effective way through digital marketing these days. You're not wasting money, time, and effort trying to market and sell to everybody.
yeah. I mean, we've in the marketing world, of course, been talking about account-based marketing for a long, long time. I think a few people think it's this new thing. It's only been around for a couple of years, but it's been a stalwart, and it all centers around this idea of having a real good sense of who that addressable market is, having target accounts that you're going after. And I always call to mind the author Chet Holmes, who wrote The Ultimate Sales Machine, and he talked about your top 100 or your target 100. And I feel like most consultancies, as you've said, with one of those tight kind of addressable markets, they do well to really get familiar with the names of the organizations, to visualize themselves working with them, to get specific about the needs of those particular organizations, because only with that specificity can you really be that targeted, right?
Right. And again, when you think about professional services marketing, the size of the check that your client is writing tends to be pretty substantial. And there tends to be multiple stakeholders that have got some sort of say. And increasingly in the age of AI, we're not privy to those conversations and the research that's being done on your firm because it's all being done removed from you, but it's happening and there's more people involved than ever before. So yeah, absolutely. And we try not to apply like SaaS principles of our business to professional services, but that is an area where there is overlap. We're fortunate that in the markets that we serve, there are lists. We work with architects and engineers. There's the AJ 100. We
Mm.
work with boutique consultancies. There are members of the Consultancy Growth Network. There's a network in the States called Collective 54. There's pots of businesses that we're able to sort of identify, which just limits the need to try and find everybody and anyone out there. And we can then spend more time working with people that would be a really good fit. And
Yeah.
yeah, the
And
best professional services firms are doing that, aren't they?
yeah, and no excuse to be a genericist anymore, and to be seen as the we do anything for anybody, which so many tend to kind of default to. You mentioned in amongst that, Ben, as well. You know, with margins being tightened and what have you, developing staff is becoming one of those things that perhaps gets relegated. It gets put on the back burner, but when it comes to talent, it being so important, and if we are buying into the very real idea that humans are at the center of consultancy, people are your growth strategy, as I was recently discussing with Caroline Boston on this podcast as well. What are the smart ways to upskill your team at the moment? I know that people are going to be concerned in their roles about AI, the role it's going to play in future. Perhaps that plays a role in people development. What are you seeing is the best way to make sure that people and consultancies do keep pace?
But you know, one of the things that we've got in our solution, and I know this question hasn't preempted this, and I don't want to talk product, but it's a feature called Skills Matrix. And it's surprising how many firms haven't even built out a skills matrix for their existing team, for their associates or contractors.
Yeah.
So actually, like, rather than necessarily dive straight into asking everybody, where do you need learning and development, or speaking to people in the market about how they've been able to develop their teams and which people to use and what areas people need development in, which we can cover for sure, but like just a basic sort of like competency framework, skills matrix is a really good starting point to sort of understand what caliber and experiences you've got. And the amount of businesses I speak to who then adopt it, but then forget about it. And then 12 months later go, oh, we've not done that exercise, but people have progressed. They've learned more skills. They've worked on different types of projects and engagements that haven't been documented, isn't being used in the business. Generally is really, really surprising. But beyond that, the obvious one that I think lots of people in the industry are talking about, and the most successful firms have really embedded well, is moving away from partner-led sales to an embedded sales culture where the the archetypal salesperson doesn't exist, and therefore an introvert or a junior has still got a role to play in delivering sales and marketing within the business. The Rainmaker is a concept that I first came across a couple of decades ago. Kept seeing it, kept seeing it, kept seeing it. I was like, this doesn't actually really make sense. There's not many other industries where like you just have one person who is responsible for pipeline and business development apart from professional services. So it's kind of a relief in a way that that trend has become a big talking point and being really well adopted. Also because sales isn't just about talking and presenting. There are people that can sniff out opportunities. There's great listeners. There's people that can contribute in a whole number of different ways. So, yeah, I love to see that actually, and it's no surprise to me when I speak to some firms and they're moving more towards that. That
Yeah.
they're the ones that are progressing.
100%. I feel like that's a massive step in progress when you recognize actually that the vast majority of sales is done in delivery. And
Right.
kind of that relieves the pressure on any one individual that's looking at the sales strategy. But they really need to encompass that. It is a holistic thing that transcends the entire organization. And yeah, so I think attitudes have changed, and that's certainly for the better. And Ben, I want to talk briefly about the Consulting Pulse. Not often that we get to promote other podcasts, of course. This is an addition, not a replacement. But tell us about the kinds of things that you discuss.
It's actually pretty like the vibe is similar to this. So it's conversational, and we just try and get interesting people from the industry talking about things that are important and relevant to them. Obviously, it would be nice if everybody in consulting absolutely loved operations and finance, and that was like an audience that then immediately converted to being a CMAP prospect. However, that is not one applicable. It's never going to be particularly like repeatable, like from an interest perspective. And third, I don't think I'd ever get like very many guests if that was the focal point for every single session. So we're just trying to make it useful to people in the market. I'm sure in a very similar way that you want your sessions to just be a little bit thought provoking, provide some little bits of insight, some little tidbits here and there. We're definitely not filling a void because there are some really great podcasts and content producers already in the space. I think we're just trying to like work with those and complement them and
Yeah.
give boutiques the ideas and the inspiration that they need because this is a really great market opportunity for the businesses that we work with. And actually, whilst it has been flat, what is evident is those big firms are really starting to creak, and that excites me. That like interests me. That makes me think that the businesses that we work with are on the cusp of taking market share and really propelling themselves forwards. So
Yeah.
that optimism might be dampened, but give it a bit of time, and I think we're going to get there.
Completely agree with that. Yeah, I think the power is moving, if it hasn't already, to the boutique. I mean, clients want agility, they want transparency, they want care, and that's something that has been absent, sadly, from a lot of sort of the bigger propositions for a long time. I know, and I feel on the podcast side of things. I mean, yeah, we kind of joke a little bit, but it's still sparsely populated. This whole sort of consultancy podcast space. I think that there's still more to come. And there's very little actually to really feed our audience at the moment. I wanted to ask, is there a particular guest that you've interviewed recently that really sort of provoked a change in your thinking, or something that really threw a curveball for you?
I'm quite like I'm a person that where I find most people I meet get something really interesting from them. Guess I'm like super inquisitive. I always get told ask too many questions. Um, so first off, that people who've joined the podcast who have just started a firm or just beginning their journey through to those that have sold for hundreds of millions of pounds, there isn't a session where there isn't two or three like really good bits that help me personally improve my education in the marketplace. Um, I guess there is a couple of standouts though, like the guy who set up Collective 54, Greg Alexander, sold his firm for like $162 million. You can't not be impressed by a boutique professional service firm with only 30 people do 30 million in revenue a year, $1 million per head, huge margins. Like that's just from I've got a sales and marketing hat in my role, so that's pretty impressive.
And then having the desire to help others as well, right? Ben, to pass that
Right.
knowledge on.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, he joined the podcast and he shared his insights and he talked a little bit about his post-exit journey as well, which was quite funny. I quite like it when people, move beyond just the professional bit and start talking about like what's happening in their real life. But we've had some really interesting people on. We've had people who a woman who followed her husband around the globe following his career, but actually had like a fantastic proposition. And as soon as he'd finished, she set up her consultancy and it's like hockey stick growth. And you're kind of going, it's turning the sort of like traditional breadwinner piece on its head, going, that should have been done earlier. And like you've held this business and then all of a sudden you've got an opportunity and it's just exploded. That's also like really fantastic to see. I love that.
Wonderful. So I want to throw a few quick sort of curveballs at you. We've talked a lot about the KPIs and metrics that consultancies should be looking at. Is there one metric that you think we should stop worshipping in consulting that you find is just too prevalent out there?
What metric? I mean, a lot of successful firms chase growth, don't they? And that revenue growth obsession has probably stemmed from SaaS and got us into a few difficulties, like from an economic cycles perspective. And maybe we're in one now with AI, with like overvalued AI businesses just being valued on revenue rather than margin.
Mm.
That obsession with growth isn't a bad thing, but I think it can sort of like make ill-informed decisions around like you've got to chase revenue growth or headcount growth.
Yeah.
It's not whether you're running a lifestyle business or you're growing a firm to exit, like it doesn't feel healthy and it historically has led to bubbles. So maybe that would be one.
Yeah, they do feel like borderline vanity metrics. As you say, important that the growth is there, but why not growth in profit and margin rather than in top line and headcount? Because again, I feel like the old sort of assumption that headcount is value in a consultancy, we can put that one to bed pretty easily now that again technology is featuring so heavily and there are so many other levers to pull, right?
Right. Yeah. And then you think about like the what's in it for me of the employees of a consultancy firm. Are they bothered about headcount growth or revenue growth? I know it's important to you as a leader, but like they're working for your firm maybe because you're doing really interesting projects with really interesting clients. So like, is there a way that you can analyze the value of the work that's being delivered, your impact? That's what 95% of your employees will be caring about. So yeah, that might be a more interesting one to look at.
Okay. Let me test you with another question. If you could, let's imagine you can productize one tiny workflow in consulting and collect the royalties on it forever. What would you be productizing?
And just for further context with that one, is that like a specific service that I've seen a consultancy deliver, or just something that all consultancies do, that if I could take a percentage of that?
Yeah, it's that workflow dynamic. When yeah, something inside of every consultancy, perhaps that if you could productize it, make it just flow for people, what would it be?
Well, maybe tracking time because that's the most used bit of our software, and I see how many people track time, and it's tens of thousands, and it runs into hundreds of thousands of data points. So even if I got a quid off each of those, I'd be of every time entry, I'd be a very wealthy man.
Right, I love that. Okay, last hot take. Finish this sentence for me. The fastest way to add 5 margin points next quarter is
Look at all of your historical pricing and projects, understand whether they went over budget or under budget. Look at your next five projects and compare and contrast and make sure you don't repeat the exact same errors that you did on the ones that were loss making last next time.
wonderful. Love that. Right. We're going to wrap up with our usual feature now, Ben. Snog, marry, avoid. You knew this was coming. It's not the one you think. So snog is a quick win. So what would you advocate in consultancy, a quick win that you think people can really sort of move the needle with?
Get yourself a podcast or a webinar series set up so that you can invite 5 to 10 of your ideal prospects to be a speaker on a podcast or a webinar series. Send the invites to your existing client list and some prospects. Get some momentum there because you will start engaging with people in your ICP. It won't lead to immediate revenue unless you're really, really lucky, but it will start you building pipeline. And it'll be the wagging tail on the dog of what Matt you mentioned earlier, which is like just looking at account-based marketing, narrowing your TAM,
Yeah.
speaking to like a really tight set of potential buyers.
And you'll learn so much in the process as well, as we both know we do. Yeah. Um, okay. And marry, something you absolutely couldn't live without, something for the long term in business. What's going to serve our listeners well?
For boutique consultancies, what is the trend that I would embed in my business? We've already talked about embedding sales, so I don't really want to. I feel like that would just be repeating that same thing again. What would be a new one to bring into the table? Leveraging technology and data within your organization, whether you're sticking with spreadsheets and point solutions or you're using lots of different tools, like really getting a deeper understanding of the data points that matter inside of your firm
Mm.
and leveraging technology to get more of that will only enable you to keep growing and being successful. I think more data is like more oil. It will keep the wheels turning. Yeah.
Great stuff. Love that. And avoid. What do our listeners need to ditch tomorrow? There's something that's perhaps not serving them that you see countless times across the consultancy landscape.
Mhm. Yeah, we covered a couple of good ones like the Rainmaker bit,
Yeah.
not tracking your project margins. What would I absolutely ditch? Okay, but I reckon blandness, just like, which is great for you and your audience. Trying to go on so many consultancies' websites and like really understand the markets that they focus on and where their expertise is can be really like challenging. And I appreciate I'm not your bar over your services, but I have been in the market now for 4 years. I do buy services,
Yeah.
and I'm obviously preaching to the converted, so that's probably just an easy get out for me on that one. Oh, interesting, Matt. Has anyone thrown it back to you and gone like, "What's your snog, marry, avoid?"
They haven't, and you'd be catching me out if you did that, Ben. So I might, as the host, I might just swerve it. But I'd agree, of course, I would. I still see so many consultancies. I'll get specific on this when it comes to the avoid side, at least. I'll give you that. Is there's so many still solution focused positions out there. When you visit a website, and the telltale sign is, and I think I've spoken about this before. I saw a guy called Andy Bounds speak many years ago. He wrote a book called The Jelly Effect, which is all on better communication. And he challenges people to print off their website and to have two highlighter pens, one red, one blue. Wherever you're talking about yourself, so we do this, we do that, our solutions, our process, we've been around since, you color that in red. Wherever you're talking about your ideal buyer, your audience, you color it in blue. And if it's mostly red, which let's face it will be in the vast majority of cases, then he calls that weeing all over your prospects. And it's just not welcome, and it's the wrong way around. Of course, when I visit a website, I'm looking to identify myself in your proposition. That doesn't come when you talk about yourself. It comes when you talk about me, my situation, my frustrations, the situational niche, as I call it. The more you can understand, like a fly on the wall in my office, what I'm going through day to day, the frustrations, the blockers, the challenges, the pains, the cries for help, the more I'm going to say, oh my God, these guys get me. I need to speak with them. And that's what I think people need to be aiming for. Thanks for asking.
Just one quick comment on that. Like, what I find really interesting in consulting, though, is lots of experts who talk about productization of services say you need to be talking about like your specific way of doing things. I guess it's just a balance, isn't it? You just don't want to be overtly talking about that all the time. It's great to have a productized service and have a name and a solution and some IP around it, but
I think the classic
still,
adage holds weight, which is to say that, your buyers don't care about you. They care about what you can do for them. So long as you put it in the context of your solutions solving for a particular challenge that you see is most prevalent in your ICP, then that works. And so it's about, as you say, it's about how you frame it. It's always got to be in context. And I think that's what's missing from so many propositions. It's almost like going to and I use this adage a lot, it's like going to the doctors, open the door and the doctor's already got a big bottle of pills out. It's right, describe all your symptoms, we'll see if this is the one. And it's just, that's not how it works. You've got to be more diagnostic. And so I think, a lot of consultancies out there could benefit from that.
I love that. Yeah.
Good.
I've been to that doctor as well, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a worry. Right. Ben, listen, I've massively enjoyed that. It's been so helpful. How can people find you? How can they find out more about CMap?
CMap is cmap.io, and we've got loads of consulting content on there. I'm on LinkedIn, Ben Edwards, and then if you search also CMAP, you will find me.
Wonderful. Ben, thank you so much for joining us on the Consultancy Edge today.
Cheers, Matt. Been great. Thanks ever so much.